cry reached up to where God was, meaning that the sins reached up into what? Heaven. Your margin always takes you back in Revelation 18 to fill the cup back to Sodom and Gomorrah. That is the condition, the last sin before the sin of the passing of a Sunday law. Now let's watch this now. It says, rarely do popular vote reflects such a dramatic what? But you know why it's happening now? Because it's time to reach the limit. It's here. It's here. Now watch it. It says it's the first time voters have approved same-sex marriage. You see, normally the same-sex laws that have been passed before came down from the top to the bottom by the judicial system. But for the first time in 2012, it didn't come down from the top to the bottom. It came from the what? Bottom to the top. It was a grassroots movement. And do you know the Sunday law is going to be passed the exact same way? It's going to be through revolution, through riot. You haven't been seeing no riots, though. Now, we're going to find out these conditions are going to get ready to do this. This is the last social change. Now, watch this now. It says it's hard to overstate the what? National significance. So they said what is happening now is going to have an effect not just on a state, but on the entire what? Because the Sunday law is going to be what type of a law? National. So the same-sex law must be what type of law? National. Now, it has never been that. Your grandparents have never seen this. You see, we have never been in the place we're in today. This is the generation. No other generation. Now, how do we get to this place? It says in the 1990s, most Americans told posters they did not know anyone close to them who was what? So in the 1990s, were we ready for same-sex laws? Yes or no? Ready for a Sunday law? Yes or no? Then it says, by 2010, the number of Americans who said they had gay or lesbian close friends or family members was at what? 49%. Could they pass legislation yet? Yes or no? Not yet, because in America, in order to get legislation through, you have to have what type of vote? Not 50-50, you have to have what? Majority vote. But were they almost ready? Yes or no? So we see in 2010, almost, that's 49. Now, brothers and sisters, we are getting ready to reach 7 billion people. In 2010, we hadn't reached 7 billion people yet. Remember, God finished everything in. But then it says this year, that number stands at what? That's 2012. Already 7 million people questioning, can legislation go through now as of 2012? So now, we're now in the time, not only for the time of a same-sex law, but now we come for a time of a what? Sunday law. Now, let's watch this now. So this shows us that we're in that time. That's why since 2012, it was having a national significance, because it's now getting ready to affect not just a state, it's getting ready to affect a what? Nation. Now watch this. President came on the scene after that and said, Obama says gay marriage doesn't weaken families, it does what? It strengthens family. That never happened by a sitting president. And someone says, well, this is the man. I'm telling you, any president in there would have said that. I know of many, you're going to find out many Republicans and Democrats saying the same thing. Don't get caught up in the division of Republican and Democrat. If you're a Seventh-day Adventist, you shouldn't be either one of them. Let me say it again. Now, I know you're not going to bring me back with them. Let me tell you again. You shouldn't be any one of them. In the most holy place, we don't become Democrats or Republicans. Our citizenship is in where? Heaven. Now, watch this now. Twin institutions. Prophet says, Adventist Home 340, you can find these twin institutions, Genesis 1 and Genesis what? 2. It says, blessed days of what? Eden. When God pronounced all things very good. Then marriage and the Sabbath had their what? Origin as what? Twin institutions for the glory of God and the benefit of humanity. Question. What day did the institution of marriage come on? What day? Sixth day. What day did the institution of the Sabbath come on? What day? Seventh day. You'll find this Genesis 1, Genesis 2. Jesus made reference to it in Matthew 19. He says, then as the Creator joined the hands of the holy pair in wedlock, he enunciated the law of marriage for all the children of Adam to the close of time. That which the eternal Father pronounced good was the law of highest blessings and development for man. So these are twin institutions. Sixth day, marriage. 7 day Sabbath, then the limit was reached. God declared the end from the everything that God does, God has a true church, Satan has a counterfeit. God has a true prophet, Satan has counterfeits. God has a true Sabbath, Satan has a counterfeit. God has a true marriage, Satan has a what? But in God's true marriage and true Sabbath, they are twins that are indissolubly, you can't dissolve them, they're linked together. 6th day, 7th day, indissolubly linked. They go hand in hand. There's something about the Sabbath that has to do with marriage and something about marriage with the Sabbath. We don't have time to study in this detail, but they're twin institutions. There's a relationship, and it should be that way to the close of time. Now, we found out that everything that God does, Satan has a counterfeit. So then if God has a true marriage, Satan has a what? What is a counterfeit marriage then? Same-sex marriage. Satan then has a counterfeit Sabbath. What's this counterfeit Sabbath? What? And Satan's plan is to get a Sabbath enforced by law and to get a counterfeit marriage enforced by law. Which one comes first if you're following the counterfeit, declaring the end from the beginning? Which one comes first? 6, then 7. First, true marriage, then true Sabbath. First, false marriage, then false Sabbath. First, false national same-sex marriage, then false national Sunday Sabbath. Then the limit is reached this far, no further. And my question is, are we here today? Now watch this. Seventh-day Adventist. This is now seeped into the Seventh-day Adventist church. Now you would think it was enough that it was in the world, but it got into the church. Now I want to ask you a question. In Sodom and Gomorrah, this is a film now. This is a film that was put on by some disgruntled Seventh-day Adventists. With the LGBT, they couldn't have enough money to finish it. The LGBT department got in, finished it. It's been showed all the way out of America. It's been showed through the films, and the world has held it. Have you heard about it? Serious. Now, what does it mean in light of the sanctuary? Now, watch this now, brothers and sisters. Now, in Sodom and Gomorrah, homosexuality didn't start the day that the limit was reached and the city was burnt down. But what made it so bad was that on that day, for the first time, homosexuality knocked on the door of what? Lot. Lot represented who? The remnant church. So when the homosexuality reaches the remnant church, God says, this far and what? Then he said, get everything out of Sodom. I'm going to tell you something, brothers and sisters. If ever there was a time to get out of the cities into the country places where we can grow our own fruits and vegetables, to get ready for the Sunday crisis, physically and spiritually, and to get others in the church and in the world to get ready for this position, the time is now, because it's going to be too late when this happens for Seventh-day Adventists. Now, my brothers and sisters, watch this now. It started in and said, gaze in the family. This is the gleaner. This is coming to the Pacific, to the east, the west coast. In fact, a few months ago, a chaplain for PUC preached a sermon, Adam and Steve. I didn't make a mistake. Yes, he preached a sermon called Adam and Steve, and he meant just what you think. He preached a message talking about relationships, and he says at the very end of time that God's going to call an audible. What that is in sports language, a football player, they get ready to do a play, but the coach changes the play right on the floor. He will change the play and say, I'm going to change the program. He says that God in the end of time is going to change the program, and he's going to say that homosexuality is all right. It's going to be accepted into the church and into heaven. Now, my brothers and sisters, he said, God will accept this. It was preached on PUC campus, and everybody held it at first until they got the backlash. Then they started pulling it off the internet, and they tried to pretend like they didn't say it. But one man who was a leader of the church at that area said it was the best sermon he ever heard on PUC's campus. This is going on all throughout our ranks right now. They're having on our university. Let me tell you something. And do you know that our schools can't stop it? Any institution that receives government funding, as of last summer, the executive order was passed by the President of America that said any institution, and it says religions are not excluded, that are taking government funding, then it says that they can no longer discriminate between homosexuality. So they're creating safe places on our schools and campuses to allow homosexuals to stay there, but that's not God's plan. God hates the sin, but he loves the what? God loves the homosexual, but he hates homosexuality. He loves the alcoholic, but he hates alcohol. He loves the prostitute, but he hates prostitution. He condemns the sin while he saves the sinner. You know what we do? We condemn the sinner and we love the sin. Now, my brothers and sisters, this is going on right now. It's moving through our ranks, and you better understand what it means. And this is why the Pope is coming on saying, and you say, you know, this Pope, we've never had a Pope like this. This says, the man who won over the world and what? Why is it happening now? Because the 6,000 years almost here. It has to happen quickly. Now, my brothers and sisters, this said in 5 minutes, this Pope is different. The whole world is beginning to wonder. I'm telling you, this Pope is the first openly professed Jesuit Pope. This Pope, I always say, knows how to Pope. Now watch this. We have never seen a Pope become so popular in just a couple of minutes. This is a French historian, an expert in religion. This has never happened. They're recognizing that something massive is taking place. This was the first openly Jesuit Pope. I'm telling you, it's over. Now watch now. Watch how he popes. Watch what this says here. Do you know that this Pope Normally, popes have been against homosexuality, but do you know that this prominent gay rights magazine honors Pope Francis on his birthday? Why in the world is this the only pope that's been hailed by the homosexual as a pope that knows what he's doing? For the first time, this is The Advocate. The Advocate is the largest leading gay magazine in the world. Who's on the front cover? The Pope. How in the world? You see, all the world is getting ready to wonder after the what? Because remember, there's a connection between homosexuality and Sunday worship. I wish we had time. I would show you that Lucifer was the first homosexual. And that literally, homosexuality is a fruit, literally, of sun worship. From the Bible. Well, we don't have time. Now, my brothers and sisters, they go hand in hand. Now, look what the Pope said. This is why they're hailing him. He said, if someone is gay and searches for the Lord, and he's good and has goodwill, who am I to judge? We shouldn't marginalize people for this. They must be integrated into what? He said, we should not judge them. He said, who am I? He said, even if we don't accept it, it's time to bring them into society. He means not only the politics, government, but into the church. And brothers and sisters, the whole world is getting ready to run after this. Watch this. Executive order, I told you. And this Pope is coming where? When? This year, 2015. Now, I wish we had time to talk about why September. He's coming in September. Why September? Oh, brothers and sisters, there's so much. You should be saying, Lord, we are in trouble. Everything is winding itself. We say this because what?
500-year anniversary of the inception of the Jesuits.
Well, no, there's something more serious than that, but I appreciate that. Now, watch this now. Now, here is the first woman that's been ordained as a president of a Seventh-day Adventist church. She made history a year or so ago. I was down not far from this area where they were meeting some of her friends. We were talking about this very thing. This is Bible. Now, you better understand something. And do you know that this is the main issue? You know what's getting ready to happen? Over this, in 2015, in this year, there's going to be a decision made at the General Conference this year on women's ordination. Is that right? And brothers and sisters, it's so tricky. Oh, I don't know if you better understand. This, it's time to pray. I'm telling you, it's time to pray. It's time to stop playing. You see, we come to church, we're not hearing this. We're not getting ready. We are not ready for this, brothers and sisters. We are playing games with God. Our children, we don't know Jesus. We love everything else. I'm telling you, it's time. Now look at this. Watch this now. Now, do you understand that women's ordination is not the real issue at the General Conference session? It's always been a smokescreen. Do you understand that I was in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I heard people who were at the General Conference, who were there, workers, who were able to tell me, they can't tell their names because they might be fired. But they were brought out that there has been secret ballots taken because they've been told that you must take it first to the leaders before you take it to the people. And there, the real issue is not women's ordination. The real issue is ordaining homosexual ministers in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Do you know that this is the limit? We're here, brothers and sisters. It's over. Now watch. This is Time Magazine. This is the recent edition of Time Magazine, January 26, 2015. Now look what it says in Time Magazine. If you don't believe me, listen to what it says in 2015. This says, for many evangelicals, the marriage debate isn't really about marriage or what? Families or sex. It is about the Bible itself. And that makes many evangelicals all the more uncompromised. This is Time Magazine. The roots of the conflict are deeply theological. And there's another just as fundamental obstacle. So far, how many? No Christian tradition, I'm talking about religion. No Christian tradition has been able to embrace the LGBT community without first changing its views about what? Women. The same reasoning that concludes that homosexuality is a sin is also behind the traditional evangelical view that husbands are the spiritual leaders of marriage and men are the leaders in the what? So in order to change your position on women's ordination, in order to change your position on homosexual ministers, you've got to first change your position on what? Women's what? And if you study historically, you go through history, study it. Every Christian church that has ordained women, they always have ended up ordaining homosexual ministers. This is page 47, 48 of Time Magazine. It says, the same reasoning that concludes that homosexuality is a sin, we read that, it is not an accident that the women's liberation movement preceded the what? Gay liberation movement. Discriminatory attitudes and treatment of LGBT is rooted in patriarchy. Now, he don't understand, but they're showing that there's a connection between homosexuality and women's ordination. And this is always first, all the way through history. It says that no Christian tradition has been able to embrace the LGBT community without first changing his views about what? That means that we are on the downward march to perdition, and the only thing that can save us is a revival and a what? Is the whole church going to revive? Do you know that we're told that less than 1% of the Seventh Adventist church is going to be ready to go through this crisis? And you know why? Because we don't take it serious. Brothers and sisters, this says that gay marriage, once inconceivable, now appears inevitable. I'm passing on that. I want to get here. Look what this says. U.S. Supreme Court to rule on what? Same-sex marriage when? What year is this? My brothers and sisters, I don't know about you, but that should make you open up your eyes right now. This just came out in January this year. For the first time, normally they were waiting for all the states to get 40 states, and then they would take it to the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court said, well, no, we're not going to wait. They got about 37, 38 states, and then the Supreme Court said, we're going to jump in. Look what it says. U.S. Supreme Court to rule this year says, setting the stage for a potentially historic ruling, the Supreme Court announced Friday it will decide whether same-sex couples have a right to marry where? Everywhere where? In America under the Constitution. That will pass for the first time a same-sex marriage for the entire what? Nation. Now watch. The justices will take up these gay rights. It says, now there are just 14 states in which same-sex, let me back up here. The justices will take up gay rights cases that ask them to declare for the entire what? Nation. That people may marry their partners of their choice regardless of gender. The cases will be argued in April, and a decision is expected by late what? When does the general conference session take place? July. So now this comes June, the decision is made. Then it says now there are just 14 states in which same-sex couples cannot wed. The court's decisions to get involved is another marker of the what? The rapid change. Now, have we read anywhere that something will be rapid? Information says the final movements would be what? It says this is another marker of the rapid change that has redefined societal norms in the space of a what? Why? Because this is the what generation? This is it. It has to happen now. It's picking up its pace. This is the same sex. Now, why is this significant? Talk to me if you're with me. We'll close right here. Talk to me if you're significant. Why is this significant? Because this is the first twin that if this is passed in June, the first twin will be born. Now, is there a relationship between twins, yes or no? Now, there are no twins in this room. Any twins in this room? No twins. What is the relationship? When the first twin is born, how long before the second twin is born? 20 years. Shortly thereafter, the next twin is born. If this same-sex law is passed, the first twin will be born. And there's a relationship between the next twin, meaning that we have but a few short months to get this thing right. We're praying, Lord, give us a few short years. Do you see? It is right upon us right now. And that Sunday law is an indication that the 6,000 years are about to be reached, that this generation shall not pass until all these things be fulfilled. And while this is going on, you know what we're doing? We're playing games with God. We come to church careless, indifferent. You know, right now we're in the world, a man can watch football for hours. He looks at a doubleheader basketball game. I used to be in basketball. Doubleheader came on 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. We're jumping up and down, excited. Parties being played. You go there for hours. Midnight. You play. You know, children are playing video games till 1 and 2 in the morning. And then we say they can't focus on the Bible. That's a bunch of foolishness. You can tell somebody else, but you can't make me believe that. That the child that is going to sleep in church, when they leave church, they keep you up awake all night long. You doubt what I say today, then when you get home tonight, you'll know that I'm right. Now, my brothers and sisters, as you see this going on around us, you got to wake up and say, look, I got to get my family together. We can't go on life as usual. If you continue the way we've been going for the last few years, we'll never be ready. A revival, a reformation must take